My idea is mobile library. Have you lent out your books out of your library and forgotten who you lent them to? This way, your phone can keep track of who you lent your books to and possibly send you reminders to be able to nag them to give your books back. What it is, when you had a look at it, it probably would use the Good Books APIs, which is an online community where you are a membership and you can keep track of the books that you own in your library and you can look at reviews. However, you don't need to do that reviews. Essentially, I'd like it to be able for your phone to be able to keep track of what books you have, and when you lend it to someone, just on your phone to connect it to someone that's in your contacts list. Now, I understand this is mobile heavy and I'm not too sure about the mobile element of it, but I've been told that we can make it on the web and make it happen on the phone. It'll be fun. Keep track of your books. All right.
Just work.
All of this happened more or less. It's a story about 4 lovable rogues, about Juliet, Daniel, Karen and myself, Grace, set together on a quest, thrown together by fate. Well, it's not really fate that drew us together, it's our tutors here at EDA. And our quest, well, we actually got to choose which quest we were, and our quest is to make an app. Our app is one that keeps track of actual, for real books, you know, the ones with paper in them, and who you lent them to. Oh. A mobile library, if you will. And thus began our quest of 7 days, of which there would be many challenges overcome, in which there would be many lines of code written, many decisions made, many meetings, many dance moves, and many corn chips eaten. Juliet will now tell you about the next chapter.
Before I get into a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes, I'm just going to run you through a demo of our app. So this is us at the login page, and we have our test user, Kereru. He's going to log in now. And as you see, he's already got a couple of his own books and some others in his library. Now he's about to make a search. This will call out to the Google Books API. He's obviously interested in learning some programming. Here we go. So he selected this book from the search and he's going to add that to his library. You can see it's popped up down here. Now I think he's obviously got a DVD or something that he couldn't find on Google Books, so he's just going to add that one manually. And as you'll see, it pops up down in his library here. And now I think it might be time for a little bit of admin. So as you can see, these grayed out ones have been lent out, but he's obviously interested in getting this one back, so it's been returned. And he's resizing the screen so you can see that this is responsive design. And finally, he's going to lend out this book to Sam, I think. And that's how it works. So now that you've seen a little bit what's happening behind the scenes, I'm going to discuss, basically how our app works. So essentially it's made up of 2 separate apps, the JavaScript frontend, which is what you just saw, and a Rails backend. The reason we decided to separate it out into 2 different applications was because initially we were interested in using a technology called PhoneGap, which we did end up using. Basically this allows for deployment to mobile devices, so you can access our app on the mobile now. Another reason we wanted to separate it out was it kind of allowed for a nice team structure where those of us who wanted to work on JavaScript and front end could do so in a nice sort of tidy fashion, and those who wanted to work on the back end of Rails could do so. And so these 2 components interacted via an API that Grace and Dan set up. For those of you who aren't familiar with what an API is, it's basically a pre-agreed set of routes that any application two applications can access each other at. I kind of like to think of them as questions that 2 apps can ask each other. And so how it sort of works is that, say a user wants to log in, they come to the front end, they're like, I want to see my whole library. That request goes along to the back end, knocks on the door and says, hey, I need this user's library. Back end says, wait there, it goes to the database, does some processing, comes back with the information, gives it to the front end who renders it there. So that was sort of how our, internal API worked. The other API we interacted with was the Google Books API, and this was also mediated through the Rails backend. So if we come in, go to the backend, we would reach out to Google Books, get the search results, then return them to the front end. So I was going through a couple of the technologies we used. At the front end we sort of had HTML, JavaScript, which was organised using the Knockout JavaScript framework. There's also a lot of jQuery and jQuery UI in there. And on the back end, it's pretty classic Ruby on Rails, but we also use the device team for our login system, and all tests were done in RSpec with the Fabricator gem and API PyGems for our routes. So that's a little look at what's going on under the hood, and now Karen and Dan will talk you through the next chapter.
It's okay. Alright. So, team stuff. I'll talk you through our team. We sat down, we had a chat. We set our initial goals. Don't kill each other or ourselves. We also decided that we needed to deliver a really, really good presentation. Pretty good, eh?
But most importantly, we wanted to have fun. Now, fun for us meant eating quite a lot, and it was quite often and quite comprehensively. It also meant that we went off-site to get a break from the computer, get out of this place, and have some fun with each other while we weren't looking at screens.
Also important were all of our learning objectives. And it came down to, we all wanted to be really confident when we walked into job interviews to say that we knew what we had been learning at this bootcamp. So these were technologies we focused on, we learned them, we're confident.
We thought we'd better get our team properly sorted before we started, so we decided we would have regular check-ins. They were to be at 9, 12 and 6. Of course, we never managed to hit those particular times, but we'd set the structure up. We decided that we would set some minimum work days so that we knew we could expect each other to be around these particular hours. But again, we went way beyond the 9 to 6 that we put in place. And on the weekends, we thought 10 hours. We'd expect each other to be there 10 hours, but again, I think we could multiply that by 3. Yeah. But it was in place.
We also expected each other to have fun, and ourselves to have fun. And this is kind of important because if you think about what is fun at bootcamp? Fun is also learning, so it's kind of like a more holistic idea of we're having fun, it means we're learning by default. So we set this goal, an expectation on ourselves and on everyone else, and that they would expect of you that you would be having fun every day. To facilitate that, we needed to be able to communicate. Failure. We communicated well.
So we also came up with this concept of the Time Lord. The Time Lord was responsible for setting the timetable, monitoring Git. Those of you who don't know about Git, it can be very gnarly if you're all working in the same place at the same time and things get conflicting, it's nasty. So
I love merge conflicts.
This is Mr. Git here. Anyway, we had this Time Lord and this rotated through. So we each had a go at being Time Lord, and we facilitated meetings, and we thought if we were going to get into any situations with 2 on 2, we needed somebody to make the ultimate decision. So the Time Lord was the ultimate arbiter of truth. So the most important thing about the Time Lord was they had to provide the morning tea. And the morning teas often led straight into the afternoon teas. And the other thing the Time Lord had to do was to teach a dance move. So we learnt to twerk, do the Highland fling, pogo, the sailor's hornpipe, and the Turkish crawl. Demonstrations later by request.
What's a Time Lord without their companions? They're like a lord of nothing. So by default, those of us who weren't the lord on the day had to be the companions to make the lord feel like a lord. So we had expectations on this kind of role of companionness, and it was that you had to communicate with, it was your responsibility to communicate up. It wasn't just a one direction or downward thing. And you had to be a willing helper, constantly putting your hand up. If there was something that needed doing, everyone put their hand up. And most of all, you had to be willing to laugh all the time.
And dance.
Oh, and dance, thank you.
So, how'd it go, Dan?
Not bad, Karen.
You can do better than that.
All right. So, in my opinion, in retrospective of this, is that this big chat we had at the beginning, talking about absolutely everything we could, set a kind of stage where, for myself, I think for everyone else as well, that we had a lot of trust and we felt very safe because we knew what we needed to do and what we could expect everyone else to do. If anyone else went above and beyond what we had agreed on, that's fine, but we knew what the minimum was. And the kind of talking of fun, and that we would all expected each other to have fun and ourselves, meant that we were constantly learning, and we could really just push ourselves into kind of reaching for this goal of just learning as much as we could in the 7 days, and having as much fun as we could.
And so I think that's a good place to hand back to our lovely Grace.
So the conclusion of our story and of our journey together today is, well, right here, right now. Let me remind you of our challenges. 7 days we took an idea and fully blew that out to be online, absolutely accessible. You can check us out. We have our website. An app that is absolutely really useful. Different languages. You may have heard in the other teams how there are some Ruby people and some C# people. We had the same thing. We speak different technical languages, however, we came together and had really fantastic flow together in comradeship. And that comradeship is things also how our team evolved with the fun element and how we supported each other and how we inspired each other with the amount of fun and the encouragement of learning one another and how fun and driven that made us, even though we're in the 9th week of a boot camp and we are tired as. The fun element made us just want to give it more and be inspired to give it more. And all in all, at the end of the day, I think we have a very, very awesome app and a very fantastic tale of comradeship. Thank you. Have any questions?
I noticed there was you could set how many days the person was being loaned the book. So when the 1 week expires, what does the app send Samson an abusive email? Or what happens?
We discussed this feature and we thought it probably best not to destroy friendships with it. We didn't quite get to finish that feature. We've got the back end part of it happening so that it will check when you log in what books are overdue and give you a little notice. These books are overdue, and then you can choose at that time to extend your lending by however long you feel.
Or send an abusive email.
Their email address or their phone number.
How did you manage scope creep and the change process?
I think we were pretty good. The idea was pretty simple to begin with, and because we also were all together on what the application would do. We all love books. We all hate it when we lend them out and don't remember who we lent them to. So I think we were all pretty solid on the idea from day one. And it just so happened that when we were building it, there'd become more things. We'd be like, oh yeah, that'd be great if we could have this or that. But the Time Lord was the Lord of time and the Lord of tea time and the Lord of making decisions. So if we didn't collectively agree, then it was up to one person, to make that decision on the day. And I think that meant that we didn't sway too off of what we actually envisioned the whole thing to be. The only thing that we really could have done with more is probably more time.
What's the website address? Mobilelibrary.nz. Hopefully it'll be up today. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see. I'll test it.
We're still waiting for our domain to
yeah, 24 hours.
give us a...
But it's on Heroku now, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
It's a horrible domain.
That salty savannah.
Yes, madam.
Did you get it to work on mobile?
Yeah.
Don't you take that
Okay,
down?
so PhoneGap's interesting. After spiking on it and trying to take our GitHub repo, that was the front-end repo, and put it into PhoneGap, I realized the way we were doing login would mean it was going to have some really complicated routing. So I came up with this idea that you could strip out all of the HTML, all the JavaScript, and all the CSS in the PhoneGap app, have a one-liner in the HTML, which was a redirect to our website URL, so that when you open the app, which would be on any of the mobile devices, it creates a browser, but without any of the browser functionality like that you can do, and it will just automatically redirect you to our website's URL. So it's a bit of a hack, but it does have a gain where once you've logged in the first time, it will save your session persist, so you don't have to log in again, and it will cache all of the files, so it will run faster. Plus you've actually got an app that you can say install this, but it is actually just a one-liner. Anyone else?
Cool.
Thank you.